Origin Quantum just made its quantum operating system free to download. Anyone, anywhere. That announcement landed as a footnote in a field obsessed with qubit counts and error correction milestones, buried under headlines about superconducting processors and fault-tolerant computing. It shouldn't have been a footnote, because the most important layer in any technology platform is rarely the most visible one, and what Origin just did is not really about the download at all. Here's the move worth watching. Origin calls Pilot OS 4.0 the world's first free quantum operating system. That framing is Origin's own, and it is worth interrogating carefully. IBM's Qiskit has been free and open source since 2017. Microsoft's Azure Quantum offers free access tiers, so you might reasonably ask, what exactly did Origin just do that is new? Hold that question. It's the right one, and the answer reframes what this moment actually is. The quantum hardware race is genuinely unsettled right now. No single machine has pulled far enough ahead to anchor the whole field. IBM is advancing along its published roadmap toward thousands of qubits. Google has verified specific error correction milestones in peer-reviewed research. Others are building, but no one has won. That gap, that genuinely open contest, is the window Origin is climbing through, not on the hardware side, on the side that determines whose abstractions every quantum developer learns to think in. By the end of this, you will understand why software lock-in in quantum computing works differently from classical computing, what Origin is actually betting, and why both sides of that bet are defensible right now. This is not a story about a free download. It is a story about who gets to build the floor that every quantum developer stands on, and whether that floor matters more than the ceiling the hardware companies keep racing to raise. To understand what Origin is claiming, you need to understand what a quantum operating system layer actually does. Think of it this way. A quantum OS sits between the physical hardware and the developer's code. It handles compilation, translating high-level instructions into the gate operations a specific processor can execute. It handles error mitigation protocols that make unreliable qubits behave more predictably. It manages job scheduling, routing work across hardware backends, and crucially, it defines the abstractions the developer writes against. Those abstractions are what the developer actually touches. They are the vocabulary of quantum programming as that developer learns it. Imagine a city's building code. The building code doesn't construct anything, and it doesn't own the land. But every architect has to learn its rules. And once you've trained a generation of architects on one code, switching to a different one costs years, not months. The abstractions a developer internalizes become the lens through which they see the problem. Their codebase reflects those abstractions. Their students inherit them. That's not a technical dependency. That's an institutional one, and institutional dependencies are the stickiest kind. Now, Qiskit does some of this. That's what makes Origin's world-first framing complicated. The meaningful distinction Origin appears to be drawing is between a software development kit or framework, which is what Qiskit primarily is, and a fuller operating system layer that handles hardware abstraction, job orchestration, and error mitigation in a more deeply integrated way. Whether Pilot OS 4.0 actually delivers that fuller integration is a claim that requires verification against Origin's release notes, and that independent confirmation is not yet available. So the honest position is this: world-first free quantum OS is Origin's framing. It may overstate. It may not. The more important question is whether the strategy that framing signals is real. It is. Here is what makes the strategy coherent. The quantum hardware race is genuinely unsettled, and that matters more than anything else in Origin's calculation. When hardware gravity is strong, when one machine is obviously decisively better, developers flow toward it, and the software stack on top of it inherits that gravity. But when hardware gravity is weak, software gravity can form first. And software gravity, once it sets, is sticky in ways hardware cycles are not. Think about how Python became the language of data science. It was not the fastest language available. R was already there. MATLAB was entrenched in research institutions. Python won because it was free, accessible, and a generation of students learned it first. Their code was in Python. Their libraries were in Python. Their advisors recommended Python because that's what they knew. By the time anyone seriously asked whether Python was the best technical choice, the question was mostly academic. The switching costs had become institutional. The same pattern played out in cloud infrastructure. Kubernetes became the standard for container orchestration, not because it was obviously superior to every alternative on day one, but because it was open, well documented, and a critical mass of engineers built their mental models around it. Origin is watching those examples and asking, if the quantum hardware race stays contested for the next several years, is there a window to do the same thing at the software layer? To establish Pilot OS abstractions as the vocabulary researchers learn first, before any hardware pulls decisively ahead and code gravity follows it, IBM and Microsoft built their stacks with a quiet assumption underneath them. Hardware gravity would do the recruitment work. Researchers would use Qiskit because IBM's machines were accessible and improving. That assumption is not wrong, but Origin is betting it does not have to be right immediately. That's bet A. Now give bet B its full, honest weight, because it deserves it. Developers do follow the best hardware. That is a documented pattern, not an assumption. IBM's quantum hardware currently leads on several public metrics. Qubit counts accessible through its cloud, published error rate benchmarks, the breadth and depth of its publicly documented results. Qiskit is not just free. It has a large established developer community, years of tooling, extensive documentation, and a track record of real research outputs built on top of it. Microsoft's Azure Quantum connects developers to multiple hardware backends. These are not marginal advantages. Origin's hardware, meanwhile, is real and improving, but it has not posted results at the scale IBM or Google publish in independently verified public benchmarks. There is no confirmed direct comparison available between Origin's hardware and IBM or Google's leading machines on qubit count or error rates at the time Pilot OS 4.0 was released. That gap matters. A software platform without compelling hardware underneath it is, in the logic that has governed every prior platform war, a platform with no gravity. The floor Origin is raising has nothing powerful standing on it yet. Google's peer-reviewed Surface Code results, published in 2023, represent a verified milestone in quantum error correction. IBM's roadmap targets are company-stated targets, not independently confirmed achievements. But on the metrics that are publicly available, Origin is not leading that race. So the honest version of bet B is this. If IBM or Google pulls decisively ahead on error rates and accessible compute, code gravity will flow toward their stacks regardless of what Origin made free. The window Origin is trying to climb through would close, and a free download is not enough to keep it open. Whether bet A or bet B resolves correctly depends entirely on how long the hardware race stays genuinely contested. That is a question nobody can answer today. Pull back for a moment and the pattern becomes familiar from a different angle. The free platform, then monetized sequence, has a long track record. Google gave away Android and monetized search, advertising, and services. Amazon gave away entry tiers of its cloud infrastructure and monetized compute at scale. Red Hat gave away Linux and built a substantial enterprise on support contracts and certified distributions. The free platform is never the product, it is the acquisition funnel. Origin's most likely monetization path follows the same logic. Premium access to its own quantum hardware through a cloud platform, enterprise support contracts for institutions that build production workflows on Pilot OS, and compute time charged against Origin's own machines. The free operating system is the fishing rod. Origin wants to give you the rod so that when it has the fish, competitive hardware at scale, you are already holding the right gear and the switching cost of picking up a different one is higher than it looks. That model is reasoned inference, not a confirmed public statement from Origin. No detailed monetization plan for Pilot OS 4.0 has been independently verified. But the inference follows from every prior example of this strategy, and the move makes no sense without some version of it being true. Here's my honest read. The triumphalist version of this story, that China has outflanked the West on quantum software and the game is already tilting, overstates dramatically what a free download proves. No meaningful developer adoption of Pilot OS 4.0 has been publicly documented. No independent technical review has confirmed that it functions as a fuller OS layer rather than a sophisticated framework. The world-first claim is vendor framing, and vendor framing in a competitive field is not a fact. The dismissive version, that this is noise, that hardware decides everything, that a free OS with no dominant machine underneath it is just a download nobody needs to keep, ignores something real. Software lock-in moves fastest precisely when no hardware winner has emerged. The window is narrow, the race is open, and open races are exactly when the vocabulary layer gets established. The reading neither extreme offers is this. Origin does not need to build the best quantum computer to win the software layer. It needs the hardware race to stay genuinely contested just long enough for the lock-in to set. How long is long enough? That is the real unknown. 2 years looks different from 10, and that timeline is the one nobody, not IBM, not Google, not Origin, controls. Origin is not racing IBM to the ceiling. It is pouring a floor and betting that by the time any ceiling arrives, enough developers are already standing on what Origin built to make switching painful. Whether the floor sets before the ceiling arrives, that is the entire question. So here's what I want your honest read on down in the comments. Do you back the floor? That software lock-in forms before a hardware winner appears, and whoever owns the abstraction layer owns the field regardless of which processor eventually dominates. Or do you back the ceiling, that the best machine always pulls code gravity toward it eventually, and a free operating system with no dominant hardware underneath it is just a download nobody needs to keep? Both are defensible right now. I want to know which you would bet on and why. We're going to keep tracking whether Pilot OS 4.0 actually builds a developer community, or whether IBM and Google close this window before it sets. Subscribe if you want to see how this one lands. That free download, the one that looked like a footnote in a field obsessed with qubit counts, might be the moment the floor was poured.